You're listening to devpath.fm, the podcast about career development for software engineers. Join the conversation at www.devpath.fm or on Twitter at devpathfm.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. I'm Jacob Herrington and I'm here with Geshan Manandhar. Geshan is a developer and entrepreneur living in Australia. Geshan, if you want to introduce yourself and tell us about your day job.
Hello, my name is Geshan Manandhar and currently I'm in Sydney, currently working for a company called The Iconic. It is probably the most popular fashion e-commerce brand here in Sydney, Australia, serving Australia as well as the New Zealand. That's more or my day job. So I've been working since the last almost 10 years or more. And right now I am mainly focused on the back-end part of stuff, but also do some of the front-end things. That's basically my day job for now.
What part of that do you think is the most enjoyable?
Well, e-commerce is a pretty fascinating subject itself. As you are basically trying to get things and sell them online, you have to look into a lot of stuff. And not only the technical parts, like interacting with our customers, basically being the internal users of the organization. So those kinds of things are pretty fun. And the technical parts are also very good. Like, we get to dabble with things like Vue.js, a lot of PHP and these kinds of stuff, Kubernetes, Docker, and all this new cutting edge technology that actually excites me.
How did you actually get into development? Did you start out in e-commerce or in another area?
So I studied computers from the very early age, but then my first job was actually an internship for an NGO. That's how I started 10 or more years back in 2007. And that actually got me more interested into programming. I had been writing some code even before that, but after I got into some real meaningful work, that actually made it even more interesting. After that, I joined another software company in 2007 itself. And there I was exposed to a lot of new stuff, from frameworks to how you actually work. And after that, I joined a company that we had co-founded that's called Young Innovations, that's still functional in Kathmandu, Nepal. And that's where I could actually make my skills better. So like when I started, it was basically more interest into coding, but as the years passed, it became much of a passion than just working.
What about that next job allowed you to actually improve?
Yeah, so the first job was more of an internship. There it was not many team members. Then the second one after that internship was a place where I could work with a team. So there was another guy who was much more senior than me, and then he could mentor me with stuff, so that I could learn a lot of new stuff, including how to work, like how to use the tools and everything. So these things step by step help me a lot to understand how you actually do software engineering, because many people write code, but lesser people really write it maintainable. Like, think about maintainability, think about making it work faster, think about performance. So those kinds of things just came into play after I joined this second job, and with those learnings I could put it into practice in my third job. So all of this actually came out into a package, and that's how it shaped me. So the thing is, like, when you study, you actually study a lot of stuff. You study programming languages, you study data structure and algorithm and all that things. But until you don't really put it into practice, you don't really get the feel of it. So when you actually start writing functional software that actually solves problem for the people, then you really start getting the things that you learned. When you learn it's just like to pass the exam, or like to get marks, or just to get the academic project done. But when you actually start implementing it into problems and solutions, then you really start valuing what you have learned, and then you have that aha moment saying, oh, this, I learned this, and this is actually used like this, and that actually helps people solve their day-to-day issues. So when you start solving problems, when you start giving more value to the customers, then you really start like thinking, okay, the things that I learned are actually valuable, and these things really help solve people's problems.
Where do you think the first opportunity you had to share the knowledge that you built in that second job? Was that as a senior developer? Was it with other developers in that job? Or was it through creating content and giving talks?
Okay, when I had my second job, it was 2007, so I was just fresh out of college,
Hmm.
not much experience, and probably in my third job, in I think towards the end of 2007, that's when I was in a bit more senior role, not exactly a senior developer, but a bit more senior role, and that's where I started helping people out who were like much who were just beginning and who just started. So at that point, I won't say I was mentoring people, but I was coaching them, I was helping them mainly in things like in software. You have to build things incrementally. You first you have to make things work, and then you make it better. So many starters didn't really get that thing. They wanted to do everything in one go, and it doesn't work like that when you are writing software. So at first it's just about, let's make it work, let's make the minimum possible thing work, and then iterate over it to make it better. So whenever you take this kind of a philosophy, then it's one step easier to develop software. So when I started coaching people, this was like the baseline of many things that I did. Of course, a lot of technical decisions and a lot of language framework specific things were involved, but the baseline always remained to be, first, let's make the basic minimum thing work, and then you iterate over it, then you improvise on it, and then you make it better. So whenever you take this kind of approach, then your software actually becomes better, and it takes lesser time to develop things as well.
So, how did you go from that into a more formal senior role?
Oh yeah, so a more formal senior role came into my third job, which was the company that we had co-founded. So after working there for some months, almost a year, I was one of the people who could get things done better. So I then gradually moved into a bit more senior role.
So, in that senior role, do you think your primary duty was to get things done well and quickly, or was it teaching others?
Yeah, in that senior role, it was a mix of both things. So it was about getting things done as well, but it also involved helping the junior members get acquainted with the things that we were doing, as well as get like sitting with them, not formally pair programming, but at least helping them solve their issues, getting them like okay with things like Git and everything. So even then we used to use Git. We really didn't have a lot of automation and other things in place, but at least Git we were already using it in 2007 2008. So with things like these, it was a mix of both things, to get things done as well as to help others who had just joined or who were pretty new to the way that we were working.
Hmm. Did you deal with imposter syndrome ever, or have you always felt really confident in what you did?
No, everyone feels imposter syndrome. So yeah, so yeah, in all of the jobs, I think I have felt imposter syndrome. So it's like a feeling that, wow, someone would just find out that I know nothing, or like I know very little about this. Though it has improved a lot in the past years, but towards the beginning, like towards the 2 3 years of your the first 2 3 years of your career, you would actually feel a lot of it, that okay, at one point you'd feel, okay, what's happening, I know nothing about this, and then, wow, I have been stuck in this problem for 2 hours now. Where is the solution? Where is this going? So all of these things happens with everyone. You have to deal with it. You have to know that it happens with everyone, and then you have to be positive about it, because our job involves solving problems, and we will always be facing problems to solve others problems. So in that sense, you just have to be firm on your task. You have to be focused on it. It doesn't mean that you have to like try to solve the same problem for hours. You could take breaks and then come back to it. But generally, imposter syndrome, you would feel that someone else knows more than you, or like someone else is amazing. But at the end, like even if you have a lot of years of experience, it's still the same. You will still feel, wow, this I don't think I am that good at this, and you'll still feel those imposter syndrome feelings. Yeah.
How, as a more experienced developer, do you kind of overcome that, especially when it comes to teaching?
Nice. Yeah. So basically, it's about two things in my opinion. One is the core technical things, like how do I solve this problem in a technical way. That's something that you can improve step by step. So that involves a lot of getting a lot of hard skills, learning about design patterns, learning about your particular framework or your language, studying more about it, getting acquainted with its developments, getting up to date. That's one part of the problem. The other part of the problem is actually having those soft skills, having trying to solve the problem first, trying to get as much requirements as you can. If you can balance these two things, then you can progress easier to a senior role. Or if you only have very good technical skills but you lack in this soft skill area where you can go back to the customer and then ask, where you can really plan stuff better, and where you can think about the solutions better, then it is going to help, but it's just going to help to a level. You will hit the ceiling a lot faster. But if you have a balance between these two things of having very good technical skills as well as very good people or like soft skills, then it helps you, because at times you try to solve a problem technically and then you always fall into complexity. So rather than doing that, just think away from a machine. Just think on a board, think on paper, or just discuss with someone for a solution. With these kinds of approaches, you will get to a solution much faster, because someone might give you a suggestion that you had not thought of, because when you are into a problem, already in that box, so you don't really think outside of that box. Whenever you talk with other people, whenever you want to do like look at other parts of the problem, then you can actually think of some other technical things that you hadn't really thought about. So always try to balance these two skills to reach to a senior level position.
The technical knowledge, I think, comes from years on the job and practice. The soft skills, I think, are a little harder to build. What is your advice for building those skills?
Yes, the technical skills, you could actually, yeah, get them. It will take some time, but as most of the knowledge that we have, especially working in open source, is open and free, so you could actually spend a lot of time trying to read these things and then get those technical knowledge. Yes, on the other hand, getting these soft skills are harder, and you also need an environment where you are exposed to these kinds of things. If you're just someone who takes a piece of specifications and then start writing stuff without asking questions, then it is a lot harder. But if you are someone that if you get a task, you start asking questions, then after a point you'd start asking the right questions to the right people, and with that approach you will learn a lot. Because software does not exist in isolation, it's always there to solve a business problem or to add value to the customers of the business. So at that point, whenever you start asking questions to any task you are given, you start to know the business more, you start to learn about the domain more, and this always helps you understand the problem better. If you can understand the problem well, then the solution is not far. You always have to ask the right questions. You always have to think, okay, why am I doing this? Can this be done better? Not only technically, but also from a process point of view. Some people even question the process. They go and they say, yeah, you are doing it this way, but maybe doing it the other way is even better. And then generally software always models a process. So generally things are in paper and then you want to digitize it, or things are being done away and then you want to record information out of it. Thereby, you always need to ask questions and try to ask the right questions to get to your solution faster.
When you talk about asking the right questions, how do you know what the right questions are? Is that something that you can have a framework for thinking about a problem, or is it going to change every time you start a new project?
Very good question. So, asking the right questions is not an easy task. It generally depends upon the project and the task on hand, as well as your experience in that domain. For example, I've been working in e-commerce for the past 6.5 years. So if there is anything related to something that I've already worked inside the e-commerce domain, it is a lot easier for me because I can relate to the older solution that I have done and then think about, okay, how can this problem be solved this time? Or like, how can this problem be solved from a different way? It also depends upon how much domain knowledge you have, how long have you been working in that particular domain, and a lot of factors like this. But this does not mean that you need a lot of experience in that particular field or that domain to ask questions. You can always look at that problem and think, what is the better way to do it, rather than just jumping on the keyboard and typing the start typing the code. So whenever you come across a task or a project, always think about, why are we trying to solve this particular problem in the first place? Can this be solved even without any technical help, or even without writing any code? And then only come to decisions and ask questions about, if we actually need to write a system or write some code for this particular problem to be solved, then how can this help the end user? You always have to think about the end user. You have to be in their shoes and then try to design the system, be it from a backend point of view, user experience point of view, anything. Just try to be in their shoe and then ask those questions to yourself. I think that's how you'll be able to get to the right questions to ask to them.
That seems pretty consistent with my experience, that the best technical leaders are the ones who really understand why they're solving the problem. Because you can write a lot of code, really quickly, but you have to write the right code.
Yes, you're right.
I want to ask you, Geshan, what is something that you consider yourself to be bad at?
Okay. Yeah. Even with all these years of experience, I think something that I can improve on, I would take that question very positively. So something that I can improve on is still people skills, because code is basically easier. It's 0 and 1. That means either it works or not. But people are complex creatures. Like, there is no 0 and 1 in people. People have, people are not just black and white. There is a lot of shades of gray in between. So people management skills and communication skills and dealing with people is something that I can actually improve on. Be it working with junior guys, be it working with colleagues, be it being part of meetings and then asking the right questions. It's at times difficult to understand what the other person that you are talking to is going through, or is in the situation. And as I've worked in multiple countries, depending upon the country and the city, there are cultural differences that you sometimes do not note. For instance, here work-life balance is like respected a lot, but for example, in the Middle East, work-life balance is not priority for the people. So all of these kinds of things, it's always depends on the context. Thereby, something I can actually improve on will still be working with more people, trying to know more people, and then trying to get the things that I need so that I can do my task better.
What are some more specific experience with that, with kind of dealing with people from different cultural backgrounds? I think that's a really interesting point you made.
Yeah, like as software engineers, I think we generally work with people from multiple countries or multiple cultural backgrounds, and whenever you work with multiple cultural backgrounds and people from multiple countries, you have to know about their culture. For instance, in the Middle East, you tend to work with people who are from the Middle East itself, and then you have to understand that women basically need more space in the Middle East. It's not like Western part of the world where you could actually go and talk with women or have any conversations pretty easily, for example, right? So those kinds of things you have to be considerate about the culture, about the place you are in, as well as the person you are talking with, what's their background, where have they come from, and what could be acceptable or like very normal in one part of the world could be considered like an offense or in the other part of the world. So you have to really think of these things. As I said, like people aspects are something that always impacts how we construct software. So just having your technical skills will take you to a level, but whenever you start understanding these minute details of interacting with people, it's a lot easier for you to get the requirements, because at the end of it, it's always about getting the right requirements and getting the right details so that you can build the proper software which is going to solve the problem.
So, do you have any advice for people who want to work internationally? How to do that? How to get started in that, and then how to actually be successful at it?
Nice. That's a very good question again. Yeah. So these days, software developers are in high demand. I think any part of the world, anywhere in the world, good software engineers are always welcome and always in demand. But what you have to think of it from the other way around, it is because you are sellable in any part of the world, there is competition from all over the world as well. So it's you have to look at both sides of the coin. You are just not sellable in any part of the world, but there is competition also. You are facing competition not only from your city, your country. Maybe you are facing competition from someone from Europe to someone from Asia. So if you want to migrate to another country to work, you really have to think of many things. Like for instance, here in Australia, if you don't have a PR or an Australian citizenship, it's pretty difficult for you to get a job, because companies sponsoring visa is not that common in this part of the world. But let's say if you want to apply to some place like the Netherlands, they have very good companies that offer you visa. Even the government has a rule called 30% ruling, which makes the expats pay less tax. So it depends upon which part of the world do you want to go into. There are lots of websites that actually help you do that. I think there is a website called relocate.me, which helps you find jobs in other parts of the world, which in companies that help you relocate. Same thing with Stack Overflow jobs. You could filter jobs by the ones that sponsored your visa and help you with relocation. So if you as a software developer want to move to any other country than you currently are, then of course you need to understand the culture and what you would expect out from that particular country or the city. But you also need to think of other procedures like visa and what is the relocation support you would be getting from that particular company. So it actually is a mix of a lot of things, because moving into a new country is never an easy task. And if you are not alone, if you are married or you have children, then it becomes an even more difficult task. So overall, I think the way to go is choose like one or two countries, and then look for the companies that you would like to work for in those countries, and then shortlist those companies, shortlist the jobs, and then start applying. That's like a better way to do it than just trying to haphazardly blindly apply any job that you see. So it's like the other way around. You first choose like a couple of countries or three countries that you want to move to, choose the companies and the jobs or the positions that you want to be in, and then gradually start applying to it. That could be a better way to do it than just trying to jump into a new jump into a new country and then start looking for jobs.
That's good advice. Do you think you grew into a senior skill set before you began working internationally, or do you think international work pushed you to grow? And would you recommend it to people who are junior or trying to become senior?
In my case, I think I had already grown to a senior level. I won't say a very senior level, but to a good level of seniority, where even when I was back home in Nepal. So whenever, because I worked there for more than 2 years, so at least the second half of my work in Nepal, I think I was already growing into a senior level. But the main transition that I see was when I started working in Dubai, and then the thing was the company was growing and growing very rapidly. So there I saw the real scale of things happening. Like, you were talking about thousands of orders a day, and you were talking about hundred thousands of people coming to your website. So whenever you see that kind of a scale coming from, not seeing that kind of scale, let's say, like seeing a lot of lesser, because a lot of problems come to you or like come in the systems only at scale. Whenever it reaches or it is more than that particular threshold, then you start seeing those issues, seeing those performance problems, seeing those scalability problems, seeing that, okay, doing it this way doesn't really work. So even when I was in Nepal, I was slowly maturing into a senior role, but the real change happened not only from the people to people point of view, the like getting the requirements and then turning them into software, but also looking at the scale of things that were being done, like from, I don't know, hundreds of people, that the hundreds of people visiting the apps and the websites that we were making back in Nepal, to thousands or 100,000 people being on the website at the same time. And then, like, this kind of scale, whenever you work at this kind of scale, then you have to think of a lot of other things that you were not thinking. Like earlier, probably your job was just to make it work and it's fine. Like someone reviews the code and then that's about it. But then whenever you talk about this massive scale, then you have to think about, okay, what happens about the performance? Okay, what if this edge case happens? Because generally you would not be thinking about these things, but whenever you work at that scale, you have to think of a lot of other edge cases that could happen, a lot of if and else that you have to answer, as well as you have to know how to program much more defensively, because you cannot just let things happen. You have to think about it, you have to profile stuff, and then think that, okay, even if this particular piece of software that I'm writing is executed or like is used by thousands of people at the same time, then it's not going to break. So you have to think of a lot of things. So I think from this point, coming outside and working in on an international level actually changed my mindset and changed the way I look at software design and software implementation. In case of, if someone wants to go outside of their usual place and then start working, I would really really recommend doing that, because one, it takes you out of your comfort zone, and two, you would already be trying to adapt to a lot of things, as well as you'll get to work with things that you may not have worked with. You could be working in a different domain, or like you could be working at a different scale that you haven't seen. So I would really recommend people who are used to doing software, because as a software engineer you could work for any domain, because as of now every company is a software company, everyone is doing software. So you could change your domain, you could do anything you want. That's why I would really recommend people to try to get jobs outside of the countries to get more exposure.
What is some advice that you find yourself giving junior and newer developers pretty frequently?
To junior and newer developers, frequently, some of the things that I happen to discuss is trying to automate the stuff that you do. Like, at times I have seen people who start really do the same thing over and over again, but don't really know how to get it done faster. For example, just using the proper shortcuts in your IDE could save you a lot of time, right? So things like that, some junior people, they don't really think that it's going to save their time. So things like that. Some other things that I talk with junior guys is trying to get acquainted with the tools that you use. For example, Git is a very good thing. Some other automated deployment tools are the things that I generally discuss with junior people. So it's just not about the code, but it's also about the end-to-end software delivery, because your code is not that useful unless it hits the production servers and then someone is able to use it. So anything and everything that comes within this line of writing your code to actually getting it into production, I tend to help the junior developers trying to get an idea of the whole pipeline. Like, it's writing your code, trying to test it, and then trying to make it work is just one piece of the puzzle. There are other things that go into place, like writing tests, making it go through the proper CI/CD pipeline, being able to deploy it whenever you want, as well as a good way to test it. So these are the things that I discuss with junior people. Something else that comes into my mind is the use of feature flags. Like, a lot of people don't really treat deployment and release differently, and I feel that deployment is a technical process, whereas release is a business decision. So whenever you think in these terms, you tend to use feature flags so that you could get the technical process going on without actually releasing the particular feature or that particular part of the software to the end user. So whenever you can make these kinds of distinctions, it's always good for junior people. The other thing that I also discuss, that I happen to discuss with junior people, is being strong in the basics. Because a lot of junior people, they tend to jump into languages and X framework and Y and this and that very easily, and then they just are going round and round in that circle, not being able to break those circles. So rather than that, if you are strong in HTTP, for example, the whole web runs on HTTP, right? If you are strong in JavaScript, then learning just another JavaScript framework, or even learning Node.js, should not be a problem for you. What I'm trying to say is, get the basics right. If your base is good, then you can build a building on it a lot easier than if your base is not that strong. So if junior people get their basics correct, then they can really excel in what they're doing.
That's all very excellent advice. I appreciate that. If someone wants to learn more about you, Geshan, where should they go?
I generally blog on my blog. That's geshan.com.np. My Twitter handle is Geshan. I am on Medium as well. I have recently started cross-posting my blog posts to Free Code Camp and HackerNoon, as well as DevTio. Yeah, those are the main places that I'm in right now.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing your experience. You've clearly done a lot and seen a lot of different things. I think people will benefit a lot from your advice. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to devpath.fm. Want to ask a question? Send an email to jacob@devpath.fm.